Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of HealthWise. Tonight, we're going to discuss a very fascinating topic, which is vaccination. And the theme, because this week is Vaccination Week, is Vaccination Week in the Americas 2025. I'm your host tonight, Dr. Joeann Davis, and I'm here with two amazing guests. We have Nurse Hazel and we have Dr. Frank. I'll just give them a few minutes to introduce themselves.
Hi. Hi, good evening. My name is Nikisha Hazel. I'm the Deputy Coordinator for Community Nursing Services, and I'm happy to be here as we celebrate Vaccination Week in the Americas.
Hi, I'm Dr. Cornette Frank. I'm District Medical Officer right now with duties in St. Peter's.
All right, so we're here with our lovely guests, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how the show will be tonight. So tonight, we have our guests, and we're also going to have our medical official on our personality spotlight, as well as a look at what's happening at the JNF Hospital with Dr. Jensen Morton. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back, so please don't go anywhere.
Every smile, every hug, every step our children take is a precious gift. For 50 years, vaccines have been the shield protecting those moments, saving 6 lives every minute around the world. That's 8,000 lives a day. Thanks to Vaccination Week in the Americas, 1.2 billion people have been vaccinated across more than 40 countries. In 2024, we celebrated 30 years without polio and reaffirmed our region's status as measles-free. But there's still more to do. For 2030, PAHO has set the goal of eliminating more than 30 communicable diseases. This goal is about caring for our future and for our communities, our health systems, and boosting socioeconomic progress. One of our top priorities is to become the first region in the world to eliminate cervical cancer, a disease that took more than 40,000 lives in 2022 alone in the Americas. To this end, PAHO supports countries in reaching at least 90% vaccination coverage rate for the human papillomavirus in girls under 15 years of age. Also, some countries are already vaccinating boys, which will help achieve the overall goal. But there are still children and adolescents without access to vaccines. We need urgent support from our leaders, our communities, and from each individual. No child, no one should suffer or die from a disease that we know how to prevent. Why is getting vaccinated essential? Because each person vaccinated is a life saved, a step closer to individual, family, and community development. Because your decision makes a difference. For those you love, for the future, for your health, and for the good of your country and our region.
And we're back. So let's just jump right in with our two lovely guests. And we're going to start off with, what is a vaccine?
Well, Dr. Davis, a vaccine is a substance that's introduced into the body to help the body to provoke a response, an immune response. The vaccines there are different types of vaccines, actually. But the whole concept of the vaccine is to help the body to produce a response so that when they're introduced to the real disease, then they would already have a learned environment. The body is able to respond effectively.
Oh, okay. So basically, it's like a prequel to a disease so that we can build resistance to it.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
That's the concept, to build resistance.
To build
yes.
resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why are vaccines so important for the public health?
All right, well, nobody likes to get sick.
That is true.
First of all, because as we said, the nation's health is the nation's wealth, and the disease, it affects everybody. It affects you individually. So it prevents you from having to go to the hospital, spend time without working, or have a sick child or things like that on your hands. On a community level, the more persons that are immunized, or the more persons that receive the vaccines, it means that you have a healthier community. And persons who are not able to receive the vaccine because of their immune system, or they're just too young, like in infants, certain vaccines to infants, then you'd produce what is called a herd immunity, which would prevent those who can't take the vaccine to get the vaccine, or to be covered, rather.
Okay, so the herd, what you call it?
Herd immunity.
Herd immunity. So, you know, when you watch Animal Kingdom, right? How, how like the elephants, like if a lion is about, the elephants will like come around in a circle. So that's basically the concept.
The concept is having the majority of persons covered, so that those who can't be covered, they would be covered by default.
Oh, okay.
Of the maximum amount of persons being covered.
So those who can't be covered, that would be like old people, or
persons who are immunocompromised, persons who are elderly, or they have some other underlying issue that prevents them from being able to have the vaccine, and of course the younger person, the younger population.
So immunocompromised being that they're sick, they have something like cancer, or their body.
They're too weak to go through the process of
getting a
getting the vaccine.
All right.
Just to interject, if I may, when we speak about herd immunity as well, we're talking about at least 95% of the population being vaccinated with whatever particular disease, whether it be polio or diphtheria or the measles vaccine. So you must have at least 95% and above of your population covered with the vaccines in order for herd immunity to be effective.
Yeah, so it's just a small number of persons that are, you know, not covered then. So everybody's just like building a protective dome over them.
Correct.
Okay, that's
But also too, you want to look at the economic aspect of it, because the more persons who are sick, the more persons who are not covered, then you'd have the healthcare burden for when they do contract these diseases that the vaccines can readily prevent. We also want to look at just the cost that it takes for the person to be hospitalized, and also for the individual to be hospitalized. They're away from, they're away from work. They're not able to provide.
Yeah, especially if they have children or somebody they're looking after.
Right.
It pulls away from that.
Right.
Okay, that's understandable. So, when it comes to vaccines, are all vaccines in the form of injections? I know we don't like to be stuck with needles. Some people have needle phobia. I don't know the correct, hospital name for it. Right. But needle phobia, they're afraid of needles. So what are some of the different ways in which a vaccine can be given?
Well, fortunately, not everybody has needle phobia. Some persons who actually look forward to needles. But apart from the injections that we know about, you have the injection that goes into the muscle, and you have the ones that go just under the skin, which is what we call subcutaneous. Also, we have the oral vaccines, like the polio, that's taken by drops under the tongue. We also have that's basically it. The three routes. Yes, the oral routes, you have the subcutaneous route, and you have the intramuscular route.
Okay.
Yes.
So subcutaneous, what was the subcutaneous? So for the intramuscular, we normally put it in the deltoid, the arm right here, or the buttocks. But, for some persons who don't know what is subcutaneous, what exactly is a subcutaneous injection?
Okay, well, the subcutaneous injection means that it goes just under the skin into the fatty tissue and not right into the muscle itself. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you just kind of pinch the skin and slide it on it, like when persons give the diabetic shot.
Right, the diabetic shot.
So you guys learning something tonight. And finally, what are the different types of vaccines?
All right. So you have a lot of different types of vaccines. You have the ones that are live. They are live, but they are in a weakened state or an attenuated state, where they're introduced into the body, and the body develops an immune response to it. Then you have the inactivated vaccines, where the vaccine is not at all alive, which is opposite to the one before, like the polio vaccine. Then you have what is called a subunit vaccine, and those are where you introduce a specific part of the germ, or a specific part of the pathogen, if you want to use a bigger word. And what that does is causes a trigger, an immune response. It triggers the immune response. Then you have a toxoid vaccine. Right, and these are vaccines where you have an inactivated toxin, like the tetanus, is introduced into the body, and that triggers a response, triggers the body to have a response as well. It's all about the body learning how to respond when it is introduced to the real disease. And then you have the viral vector vaccine, and these are where you have harmless viruses that deliver genetic material to the body, and they introduce a protein from the germ, so that you're not actually getting the virus, you're just getting an introduction of the protein that is produced by the virus.
Nice. Like, so there are a bunch of different types of vaccines. I hope you guys are, being enlightened just as much as I am, right? And we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back as we continue discussing vaccines for vaccination in the Americas 2025. We'll be right back.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see, and the climate's changing. But hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got. One voice, together we strive. Take care, the world where we live. Permite a todos vivir. Tomamos la oportunidad para cortar la humanidad. And I must leave no one behind because we are one climate, one Caribbean. One climate, one Caribbean.
And we are back. We've just been discussing, what is a vaccine, the different types of vaccines. So now we're going to go into the next question. How do vaccines work to protect the body? I'm curious about it.
Well, vaccines typically are given to individuals so that their body is able to develop immunity. So a weakened form, as Dr. Frank would have stated earlier, we have live attenuated vaccine. So that's a weakened form of the vaccine. Then we also have a vaccine that is already, dead. So a virus that is already, have been killed. And these vaccines are administered to individuals. And these allow the body to trigger an immune response. So the body is able to respond to this condition if exposed to whether the bacteria or the virus in the future. So then they will be able to, cope and manipulate and fight off whatever bacteria or virus that they would encounter at that time. So it's basically giving the body that protection over time so that it'll be able to, fight off various viruses or bacteria.
Okay, so what would you say would be some of the side effects that persons can expect to happen to them after being vaccinated?
Well, there are some common side effects. If we can pull up slide 9, you will see the side effects listed there. So generally you would have fever, of course. You may have fever, you may or may not have fever, but as it pertains to the site, the injection site, you can also have swelling in the area, you can have pain in the area. As I said, you can have a mild fever, chills, feeling tired, headaches, muscle and joint aches. And of course, for the smaller children, the infants, they tend to be drowsy. If you find that your child, after getting a vaccine, you find that the child goes to sleep. So that is another side effect that can happen. And also the appetite. So you find that after your child may have received the vaccine, that they're going to sleep, they want to sleep, and they may not want to eat. That's normal after having a vaccine, especially for young children and infants.
Wow. Because I know some people would ask a lot of questions like, hey, my child get this vaccine, but my child won't wake up. What happened?
Yeah.
So now we know.
So infants, yeah, a side effect. Some of the vaccines give a side effect of drowsiness, so infants tend to go to sleep, after they would have been vaccinated.
So what are some of the vaccines you would recommend for, children, infants, adults, and the elderly?
Okay, so there are several vaccines. There's actually 30 vaccines that we have, 30 conditions that we have vaccines for. However, we are only vaccinating for 11 of those vaccines. If you bring up slide 11, you will see the schedule that we have. So for infants or newborns, they're given the hepatitis B at birth. Slide 11. So they're given the birth hepatitis B. 0 to 4 weeks, you're given the BCG. This protects the children against tuberculosis. At 2, 4, and 6 months, they are given what we call a pentavalent. This is a 5-dose-in-1 vaccine. It has a Hib, which we call the Haemophilus influenza type B vaccine, along with DT. And the children also get the polio vaccine as well at 2, 4, and 6 months. Now at 1 year, they receive the measles, mumps, and rubella. So that's one vaccine in one. So that's 3 vaccines in 1 injection. At a year and 6 months, they receive a second dose of the MMR and also what we call a booster dose, which is the DPT vaccine and the polio drop. And of course, we would have added some vaccines as well. So 4.5, 5 years, you also receive a second dose of DPT and polio. And for children in grade 6, and we're also extending it to children in first form and second form, the HPV vaccine, the human papilloma vaccine, or the Gardasil vaccine. So we're giving that to children in grade 6, first form, and second form. And of course, there are some booster doses that can be given as well to the adults, which the DT, the hepatitis B, the MMR, and the flu vaccine. So the flu vaccine as well is fairly new to us as well, and we are encouraging persons, especially during the flu season, to get their flu shots, and especially the elderly clients, and in order to prevent them, they are prone to things like pneumonia. So we want to encourage persons to have the elderly take the flu vaccine. So those are some of the vaccines that we will give and some of the booster doses that we will give over.
So just a reminder to the population, when would you say is the flu season?
Oh, so the flu season is usually the ending of the year up into the early, so it will be like probably October, November, December, January, February, March, around that time.
Or rainy
around
season,
that time,
cold
yeah,
season.
yeah. So we tend to have a lot of persons who come down with the flu virus. Yeah.
I remember after every carnival,
Yes.
everybody coming in with a cough or a cold, and
correct.
this cold knocked me out, boy.
And it's usually worse than the last time.
It's usually, oh my goodness, over the past years, it's been crazy.
And because there are different strains of the flu.
Exactly.
So that is why it's so important for individuals to get the flu vaccine yearly. So it's not the same flu that we get each year.
Some people think that, once I get it once, I ain't gonna get it again.
Yes, some people feel so, but it's different strains.
Completely.
So we're exposed to different strains.
So you want to know, like, I just got the cold 3 weeks ago. Why do I have it again?
Yeah.
That was it. There's your reason. There's your answer, everyone.
Okay. And I just want to jump in and say that it's very easy for you to get the flu vaccine, especially the elderly and those who have other underlying conditions. At the health centers.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I think there's some private physicians that as well they provide it, but definitely at the health centers you should feel free to come and get your vaccine
because it's free.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so how often should we get our booster shots then? And then what are booster shots?
Well, booster shots are typically vaccines that you may have had earlier during childhood, and we tend to have persons, or we tend to have conditions whereby you need to have a step up or booster, as we call it, because some vaccines last. You have one dose and that would last. So some vaccines you do need a booster dose of that vaccine to continue to have that immunity itself. So we have our MMR, of course. You can have a booster dose of the measles, mumps, and rubella. You can also have a booster of the hepatitis B and a booster of the DT or tetanus vaccine, or most people may know it as. And usually it says 10 years. So for persons who may have graduated school and may never had another vaccine after that fifth form, 10 years after, you should, get a booster dose, of course, of your DPT. Yes.
So the boosters are there for maintaining coverage then?
Yes, to maintain coverage, yes. To maintain that immunity for that specific condition.
Okay. So I know that, we feel like we get big once and you don't want to come back again, right? There's a certain time limit, and I'm sure that when you go to the health centers, they will explain in great detail why the booster shots are important.
Correct.
When you should come back for it, and I think that's something we should, definitely take part in. I mean, like, it's free, you don't have to pay for it, and if you can maintain your healthy status for as long as possible, that's extra dollars in your pocket. All right, so we're going to take a quick break and come back, and we're going to continue discussing this amazing topic, right? And, we're going to learn as much as possible tonight. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Yeah, man. Another day in the books. Well, hello there. Ooh, she pretty from head to toe, and are you ready to go? Wait there. Whew. Can't afford to slip up. Not even in my dreams.
And we are back, so let's just jump right in, right? And we have the next question, which is, are there any new vaccines that, we as a population should be aware of?
Yeah, there are two vaccines that are new, which are the ones for the mpox and for the dengue as well. They are available.
Wait, so we have a dengue shot now? Yeah?
Yes.
Oh wow, I did
That's
not know
a
that.
really good thing, right?
Of course, I mean, like, we have a lot of dengue coming in, you know, because of the population, the mosquitoes and stuff like that. And with all the new infrastructure, I know we are building different roads, we have a lot of potholes, and these things can be a good nesting ground for mosquitoes. So I'm sure that over the years we've had an increase in dengue. So now that we have a vaccine.
Right.
If I may interject.
Of course.
Yes, yes, we do have, there's the dengue vaccine available and the mpox vaccine available. However, we do not have that vaccine here in St. Kitts. So I don't want persons to run on out. We don't have it yet. I don't want persons to run out, you know, and be asking about the dengue vaccine. But remember that the dengue vaccine and the mpox vaccine are basically for areas that are territories that are endemic, meaning that they, you know, they have a lot of cases, they always have cases of these conditions. So that's one of the reasons. But maybe we can look for the future. But for now, we don't have it available here. So just to make that clear.
I'm sorry, we got excited.
But we do have a dengue vaccine, yes.
And that is progress. I mean, I got excited. I was like, oh my God, yay. We can be covered. But
no, but then you have to remember too that the world is a global village.
Yes.
So we would still have to
eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. And it come right back down to the herd immunity, right? If majority of the world is protected, then we, by extension, we're protected by default.
Exactly.
See, look at that. So hopefully it comes to, it's available to the St. Kitts sooner rather than later.
Right.
Hopefully.
You know, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And so with, you know, all the talks of vaccines, you know, there are persons with different diseases, persons who are currently taking medication for certain things. Can the vaccines that we take influence or affect medications or different conditions? Can they adversely affect them? What do you think?
Okay. One of the things you have to keep in mind that somebody who is ill, somebody who has with a fever or cough and cold, their immunity is has been decreased. So that condition, especially for infants getting their shots, getting their vaccines, those conditions are usually, parents are usually asked to not bring their children when they're experiencing those conditions, because it is an introduction of part of, or a live part or attenuated part of the vaccine, which can have adverse effects as well.
Okay, so basically, as you were saying, is that the vaccines that we're given, whether they're alive, they're dead, or it's just a portion of or a part of what they do, because it's an introduction to a new pathogen, right? Our bodies now have to learn to fight against it. But if we're already at a weakened state, you're just putting extra pressure on the body then. And then
and you know, with infants, their body is just learning to adapt to the new environment of the world. So we have to make sure that we are giving it to them at an optimum state, which is not when they're immunocompromised.
Yeah, so if you notice that your baby has a bit of a sniffle or a cough, or you yourself, if you know you're feeling a bit off, you're being a bit sick, it's highly recommended, or we really push for the fact that you make sure that you, your baby, your loved ones are in an optimal state of health before taking the vaccine. But what if someone has like an underlying chronic condition, like, you know, maybe they have I don't know, like hypertension. If you're hypertensive, can that affect you getting the vaccine? Or if you're diabetic? Some people might think, oh, well, she said if you're immunocompromised, you can't take it, and I have high blood pressure, so I'm not taking the vaccine. What is that?
But persons who have hypertension or diabetes or conditions like that, as long as they are healthy,
once it's controlled,
once their bodies are strong enough to receive the vaccine, yes, they can get the vaccine. That is why even at the health centers, we really push for persons with those conditions to get the flu shot, for example, because they would, if they get sick, it is more likely for them to have a greater risk or a greater adverse effect of the influenza or of the flu than somebody who is not. So it doesn't prevent you from getting the vaccines.
Okay. So it's not a what you call it? It's like
it's not a brush.
It's not a brush.
It's not a white brush for,
right.
for every person.
But would it affect if I'm taking medication? Can the vaccine potentially affect the potency of the medication that I'm taking? Does it work that way or just nah?
No.
There we have it.
No, it doesn't. There are some medications that would lose their potency, but it doesn't prevent an individual taking medications to get the vaccines.
Oh, okay. So with all the discussion, what are some of the myths or misconceptions, that are baseless when it comes to vaccines?
Well, boy, that's a wide that's a really wide question, because we're exposed to social media, we're exposed to all of these different sources of information that you can really get misinformation. And if I could just list them, you have things like that vaccines cause autism, or some of the substances within the vaccines that they are harmful, like mercury or aluminum or formaldehyde, that vaccines are only for children, but when you really look at it, these are misconceptions. If for the latter one that I said with the children, if you think of persons going off to university, one of the first things that they ask for is your vaccine history.
That is a fact.
And so if you're not covered with your vaccines, then you have to be running to and fro to try to get all of these vaccines that you could have had along the way. Also, with the vaccines containing harmful toxins or harmful substances like the formaldehyde, actually formaldehyde is found inside of your body naturally, and it's in such small amounts that it is inside of the vaccine that it does not cause any harm. Now, there's also another misconception that natural immunity is better. Natural immunity means that the more germs you just expose yourself to, the better that your body is. And in a way, that is true. But some of these diseases that these vaccines can prevent you from getting, what they cause is the effects that they can cause is more harmful to you, even to the point of death. There's some diseases like the pertussis or the whooping cough that can cause you to have such a bad respiratory reaction that it can cause you to die. And the whooping cough, the vaccine for the whooping cough is, as Nurse Hazel said, is introduced from how old?
From
1 month, 2 months?
1 year.
From 1 year?
Yeah. 1 year,
there you
6
go.
months,
So
1 year, 6 months, yeah.
So the natural immunity, yes, it can cause, natural immunity is good. But if we're saying that the vaccine is better and it really prevents you from having to deal with all of the illness and the hospitalizations and the death and all of that.
Okay, but when you speak of natural immunity, of your body being exposed to it naturally, to me, it's practically the same thing. It's just that one is being introduced to the body intentionally, whereas the other is happen by chance, right? That is what I understand from it. But both of them saying that you're being exposed to the pathogen for your body to build its immunity, yes?
Right, but with the vaccine, the vaccine is introducing it at a weakened state.
Exactly. So you don't get maximum effort on the first try, you know, where your body is like, okay, I cannot deal with this, so I'm just gonna back off.
Right.
Right. So we're moving on. We're understanding better. So we're gonna take a short break, and we're going to see from our personality spotlight, Dr. Maria. Yeah, so we're going to see from our personality spotlight, and we'll be back in a bit.
Our medical personality is Dr. Maria Warner. Dr. Maria Warner graduated from the Institute of Medical Sciences of Villa Clara as a general practitioner and also a first-degree specialist in pharmacology in 2005. She started working in St. Kitts at the JNF General Hospital in November of 2009 in the emergency department. Dr. Warner currently works as a district doctor at the Newtown Health Center and the Connery Community Center. Our medical personality is Dr. Maria Warner.
Every smile, every hug, every step our children take is a precious gift. For 50 years, vaccines have been the shield protecting those moments, saving 6 lives every minute around the world. That's 8,000 lives a day. Thanks to Vaccination Week in the Americas, 1.2 billion people have been vaccinated across more than 40 countries. In 2024, we celebrated 30 years without polio and reaffirmed our region's status as measles-free. But there's still more to do. For 2030, PAHO has set the goal of eliminating more than 30 communicable diseases. This goal is about caring for our future and for our communities, our health systems, and boosting socioeconomic progress. One of our top priorities is to become the first region in the world to eliminate cervical cancer, a disease that took more than 40,000 lives in 2022 alone in the Americas. To this end, PAHO supports countries in reaching at least 90% vaccination coverage rate for the human papillomavirus in girls under 15 years of age. Also, some countries are already vaccinating boys, which will help achieve the overall goal. But there are still children and adolescents without access to vaccines. We need urgent support from our leaders, our communities, and from each individual. No child, no one should suffer or die from a disease that we know how to prevent. Why is getting vaccinated essential? Because each person vaccinated is a life saved, a step closer to individual, family, and community development. Because your decision makes a difference. For those you love, for the future, for your health, and for the good of your country and our region.
Welcome back. We're almost at the end of our show where we're talking about, vaccination, the importance of it, especially for this week being Vaccination Week, and the theme is Vaccination in the Americas 2025. But I have a question. I've always wondered, I've noticed that after the pandemic, there has been an increase in the number of persons who are absolutely refusing to take the vaccine because, for some reason or the other, especially seeing that the pandemic had such a negative impact on persons. So I'm curious, what has been your experience with vaccination efforts, and how has it changed, after the pandemic period? I know it's on the decline, but exactly how?
Yes, that has been a terrible experience as it pertains to vaccines and the uptake of vaccines and being able to have all our antigens. And antigens is basically the vaccines, the MMR, the DT, and so on. Having to have 95 and above % coverage for all antigen, that has been a challenge, especially for MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella. So since the pandemic and the COVID-19 vaccines, we have definitely had some decline in some of our antigens, in some of our vaccines. And our efforts basically is to resensitize the general public and to regain their trust. Because, we have social media, we have, the vaccine, what you call them again? The persons who are against against vaccinations, the anti-vax, correct, yes, that's the word. And you have them, championing their cause. So it's need for us to, up our game in the sense of resensitizing and gain that, trust as it pertains to vaccine, because vaccines have been around for decades.
True.
And vaccines have prevented so many deaths and illnesses over the years. And vaccines are one of the most studied medicine, if you want to put it like that, over the years. Because over the years, people are still being under, being, monitored. Because we have to actually talk about side effects, the type of side effects, if there are any adverse effects. So these are some of the things that we still have to monitor and are still being monitored throughout the globe as it pertains to vaccines.
It's a continuous study.
Yes, it's like a continuous study. So vaccines are one of the most studied product globally. And that is why vaccines are very much safe and effective and have been doing so much for us over the decades. So it's we really have to, resensitize the population, gain their, trust, and just give them information so that they can make, informed decision. Right. It's not about forcing them, but allowing them and helping them to understand that, hey, we've been doing this for years. Your parents had this, we've been doing it for years.
And it's not just about, just gaining the trust, but it is also about educating the population. That is why the nurses are here at the healthcare centers. If you have a question, they are ready and available to explain these things to you. You don't want to say, oh, I'm not taking it because I see somebody on YouTube say that they took this vaccine, and then, because everybody has different situations. You do not know what might have been that person's underlying cause. And as Dr. Frank said, if you are in a situation where you're not up to par, you're not at your healthiest, and you take this, you are
discouraged.
Exactly, you're putting way more pressure on your immune system, and that's going to lead to you being sick. So with as much as information that we can give out to the population, and I'm hoping that the population is willing to be educated, and not just from any random source, but from accredited and qualified sources. Because we tend to go to Daddy Google or Dr. Google, and we put in the information. We say, on YouTube, and Google said this, and the person who's writing it could just be, just as you who never went to medical school, never studied, never did any case studies, and just say their own opinion. And some people, they do this for the likes, they do this for the popularity. You do not know the cause of why they're doing it. And meanwhile, you have persons in your own community right here, ready and available to share with you the knowledge, and you're closing your ears. So please, guys, let us be open to it to make informed decisions. We're not going to force you, but we really encourage it, because when you protect yourself, you're protecting your community, right? So how do you handle vaccine hesitancy in the population? Persons who are like, I don't want to do it because, or I just don't feel comfortable. How do you deal with that problem?
Generally, have a conversation with that individual. So there must be an underlying reason why this individual might be hesitant in receiving a particular vaccine. So the key or the aim basically is to understand why. So after you understand why, then you take it from there with your education. So you educate the person. It's important for them to have all the information. You direct them to information, you give them information, and you have a conversation with them so that they are able to make that decision. So it's not about forcing that individual to take that vaccine at that time, but it's about giving them the opportunity to express themselves and to allow you as an individual to give them the information that they require or that they need at that time. So it's just a conversation.
And it's basically what we're having here right now, where we're at. What are the possible side effects? And I feel like a lot of people don't know what are some of the questions to ask, So some of the questions you can ask is, what is the vaccine for? What is it protecting me for? What are some of the possible side effects I should expect? When should I run to an emergency room? When do I know that things are really bad? These are the important things. So what message would you give to someone who is unsure about getting vaccinated?
Basically, to be informed as much as possible. Make sure you have reputable sources. As was stated, there are so many individuals out there posting, and they just are there to get likes, but it's important for you to understand and to go to sources that are reputable. So if you have a question, come on down to the health centers, have a conversation with the nurse, let them explain to you the type of vaccines, why they're given, and the importance of having these vaccines. It's very, very important for us to have a conversation if you feel uncomfortable for whatever reason.
And we're not saying that your reasons are invalid. We don't want anyone to feel that way, right? We just want you to know that you have your questions, you have your concerns, and we are here to provide the answers for you. And if you go online and you find something, don't just take the information at face value. Look up the person who said it. You're Dr. Jones from where? Where did you study? Which study are you talking about? What year was the study done? And that gives you credibility to say, okay, this study has been here for around 40 years, and this is the results,
Right.
You have anything else?
No, I was just thinking that, at the health centers, the healthcare professionals, we are not afraid to take on the questions, because at the end of the day, it's the general population's cooperation with what is available that gets us that herd immunity, that gets us that chance to not have to go through certain diseases. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to challenge us.
Yes.
Bring your information, and I would say that if there are things that we're not yet understanding about it, then we can tell you, okay, come and have that conversation with us again. Or we can point you to where you can get the information. Because we're all in it together. We're here to learn together, and we want the best for our nation.
Exactly. Exactly. This gives us an opportunity to help us to find out what is it we don't know, right? So we ourselves can go back, educate ourselves to let you all know. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to see what's happening at the JNF Hospital with Dr. Jensen Morton. We'll be right back.
I'm Dr. Jensen Morton. I'm the Director of Health Institutions here at JNF Hospital, and today I have a special guest in which we're going to do a brief interview just to let the general public in St. Kitts and Nevis know about him, and for also the people in St. Kitts and Nevis to be fully aware of the capabilities and services that he has on offer that we, of course, would then be offering at the Joseph and Franz General Hospital.
I am the Dr. Holder, Harold Holder, urologist. I am the urologist here in St. Kitts and Nevis from since May 2022.
Do you mind explaining to the general public what a urologist is?
Okay, urologist is the doctor who checking the kidney and bladder and prostate illness in general.
All right.
Okay.
So the urologist, it sounds like someone that's a master of everything to do with someone's urogenital system. So all genital-based things, everything to do with urination or prostate, since it's in the same area.
It's in general urogenital system. Sorry,
Okay.
urogenital system. More specific in the main system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you let people know what are some of the services that your addition to the JNF team has been able to offer?
So now, on this moment, I can do here in the hospital, the ENF, the service for the people. For example, surgery for the kidney stone, okay? So the kidney stone, tumor on the kidney tumor, hydronephrosis, any malformation in the kidney, surgery for the ureter stone, and malformation on the ureter, and the blood. In general, all type of surgery for the urological system and genital system, the main. So, but only we have here the option, the open surgery on this moment, because I can do another procedure, for example, endoscopic procedure, cystoscopy, ureteroscopy, nephroscopy, laparoscopy surgery from for the kidney, for the bladder, for the prostate, but we don't have here the.
We're working on it.
Yeah, good. Okay. We don't have here how do that.
Okay, but we are working on it. We do have
Yes. But here now on this moment, we can do everything.
So the final thing I will ask is, I know that you work here at JNF and you're available in the clinic in JNF. What days are the urology clinic, and how can people, what's the manner in which people can get to be able to see you at the hospital?
My day in the clinic is Wednesday, every Wednesday, 1 p.m. o'clock. So the people in first time coming to the clinic without any referral, without any document before, they can come into outpatient and take the appointment with the nurse in front of the patient.
So you go to OPD and speak with the nurse, and they get the information.
But I prefer that coming with any referral doctor before, because sometimes the patient coming and I don't know. Sometimes the patient can explain to me why they come into the clinic. If better, if they can come in with any referral, it's much better.
So
and for the patient.
So thank you, Dr. Holder.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hopefully in the future we'd like to have a little more discussion with you to get a little bit more in depth with some of those procedures that you would have mentioned.
Okay.
So thank you.
Every smile, every hug, every step our children take is a precious gift. For 50 years, vaccines have been the shield protecting those moments, saving 6 lives every minute around the world. That's 8,000 lives a day. Thanks to Vaccination Week in the Americas, 1.2 billion people have been vaccinated across more than 40 countries. In 2024, we celebrated 30 years without polio and reaffirmed our region's status as measles-free. But there's still more to do. For 2030, PAHO has set the goal of eliminating more than 30 communicable diseases. This goal is about caring for our future and for our communities, our health systems, and boosting socioeconomic progress. One of our top priorities is to become the first region in the world to eliminate cervical cancer. a disease that took more than 40,000 lives in 2022 alone in the Americas. To this end, PAHO supports countries in reaching at least 90% vaccination coverage rate for the human papillomavirus in girls under 15 years of age. Also, some countries are already vaccinating boys, which will help achieve the overall goal. But there are still children and adolescents without access to vaccines. We need urgent support from our leaders, our communities, and from each individual. No child, no one should suffer or die from a disease that we know how to prevent. Why is getting vaccinated essential? Because each person vaccinated is a life saved, a step closer to individual, family, and community development. Because your decision makes a difference. For those you love, for the future, for your health, and for the good of your country and our region.
And we are back, and we are finally at the end of this very interesting topic. We've been talking about vaccines, and the importance of it. So just to have a quick recap for those who came late and, just happened to be in for the last shower of rain, we discussed what is a vaccine, where we were taught by these lovely nurses that the lovely nurse and doctor, that the vaccine is basically an introduction of pathogens, a weakened version, and that's the important word right there, a weakened version of different pathogens for different common diseases or sometimes uncommon diseases that is introduced to our bodies, and for us to, build an immunity towards it, build a defense about it. And we've also learned that the importance of it is to achieve herd immunity, where 95% at least of the population, is vaccinated, is protected, so that persons, the 5% of the population who cannot be vaccinated, those would be those who are immunocompromised, meaning that, their bodies are undergoing a level of stress where they cannot adequately, provide this defense for their body. Those who are sick, those who sometimes are, can't do it for whatever other reasons, they are protected by the masses, right? We also learned that there are different types of vaccines where, it's not just intramuscular, what we understand with the needles. Sometimes we have fears of the big needles, but it can also be subcutaneous, where it's under the fatty tissue of the skin, as well as oral. We also learned that the different types of vaccines to be taken and the different age groups. So, we have it at babies, when they're just born, and the different milestones that they're able to cover. As they get older, we also learned that there are new vaccines coming out, one for Mpox and one for dengue. Although they're not readily available in St. Kitts as yet, they are available in other parts of the world. And eventually they will be coming to St. Kitts. Well, we hope, right? We also learned that from some of the nurses, the nurse experience, what it was like after the pandemic, and how do they deal with vaccine hesitancy, how we deal with persons who, they don't want to take the vaccine because of the traumatic experience that the pandemic was, right? And we have also been encouraged to, go to the health centers and ask these people, these professionals, those who know, why we should be taking the vaccine, what are the possible side effects of the vaccine, and not just to go on Dr. Google and whatever Google says, that's what it is as fact, The importance of not just this show, but this program in particular, is to educate the population of vaccines so that you can make a conscionable decision, an educated decision, right, to either take the vaccine or not. However, we highly recommend that you do. You don't want to be in the 5% where you're dependent on the masses to be immunized, right? So the health tip that we have for the week is your decision makes a difference. Immunization for all, meaning that once you make that educated decision, not just what somebody tell you or from their own experience, but what you research for yourself, whether you go to the health center where the information and the vaccines are free, or you went to the correct channels to educate yourselves, right? You make that decision, and we highly promote immunization for all. So I'm going to allow my guests to say one final word, and then we're going to bid you all a good night.
All right, so I just want to encourage all to get vaccinated as we continue to celebrate Vaccination Week in the Americas from the 26th of April through to the 3rd of May. We are encouraging you to come on out to the health centers and ensure that your children are up to date with their vaccines, and also yourself. Make sure that you're up to date with your measles, mumps and rubella vaccine and your DT vaccine or your hepatitis B vaccine as an adult. And of course, ask questions. You can ask questions and be educated where necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I would encourage the general population is not to be afraid of the vaccine. Get yourself informed, get yourself vaccinated. It is here, it is free. It will benefit you whether it is at an infant stage, at a older child, if you're a teen, if you're an adult or an elderly person. It benefits you, and once it benefits you, it means it benefits your family, it benefits your community, and it benefits the nation. And because we are a nation that travels, it benefits the whole world if we achieve herd immunity, because the world comes to St. Kitts and St. Kitts goes to the world.
That is very true. So guys, as we've been reiterating throughout the entire night, vaccination is important, your decision is important. It's not just about you, but your entire community. So we're going to bid you all a good night. Remember that asking questions is your right, so don't forget that. It is your right to ask questions, it is your right to seek knowledge. So we just want to reiterate the health tip of the week. Your decision makes a difference. Immunization for all. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the next HealthWise episode. Bye.